legends, this is a nice simple tutorial that is intended to show you how to set up Ultimate Golf Caddy. We're going to go through each of the steps and then I'm going to show you a very important part that you need to understand when it comes to adjusting for your shot. So make sure you watch it all the way through to have a full appreciation of what you need to do. So first things first, you want to go to the Google Play Store and search for either UG Caddy or Caddy for Ultimate Golf, and you should find the logo you can see on your screen. Click the download button, and then once it's installed, you'll get the app open to the screen that you can see now. Now the first thing we want to do before we can go and use the wind calculator is to set up a bag. So we click through to our bag setup page, and you can set up multiple bags, but today we're only going to set up one. Let's assume this is our maxed out account and we want all of our key clubs in, and we're going to put them all to max level. So the first thing we need to do is name the bag. To do that, we hit the plus button in the top right, and then we enter a name for the golf bag. So I'm just going to use my account, and then any of the clubs that we want to use, we just go through, click on the club. It will bring up the available levels for each of those clubs, and then we can just click through, setting up each of our clubs that we use along the way. You don't need to set up every club. It might be quite rare that you actually use some of these clubs, or you may actually never do it. So we don't need to worry about it. It's just really the key clubs that you actually use when you're playing the game. Okay, so we've got that all set up now. So that's now set up all of our key clubs at the right level. And all we do is click the back button in the top left. Pretty straightforward. So once that's done, we're now able to actually use the wind calculator. We're going to look at the wind calculator. I'll show you each of the buttons that you need to understand, and then show you how to get an adjustment value out of the program. So if we click on our wind calculator, the first time you open this up, it's going to ask you for permission to overlay on your screen. So we're just going to scroll down, find the caddy. We've now given it access to overlay on top of our screen, because the wind arrow function actually overlays on our screen. So now we can go ahead and open up the calculator. Now we'll go through the calibration of the wind arrow overlay in a second, but I just want to go through first all of the key buttons, and then we'll go through that step at the end. So as you can see on your screen, there's a few things happening. First, we've got the club visible. So the club that we are using is visible on screen. Until you actually go through and click to the clubs on your bag, it will always show a basic fusion. But once we click and open that bag up, which I will show, it will then automatically update to the right club. Now, a few things on that window where the club icon is. In the top left corner there, you've got a 1. That is telling you what level of that club is currently set. So if you've accidentally set it to the wrong level, you can quickly cross-check in this screen to make sure that it is the right club. And if it's not, you can go back into your bag setup and choose the right level. Next to that, then you've got a percentage value there. That is going to give you a quick reference for the shot view for each of those clubs. So rather than having to go back and look at any files that you may have or open the club page within the game, you've got it there ready to go, so you can quickly reference that when you're setting up your shot. And then below that, you've got a currently showing a 0 number, but that is going to be our adjustment value. So that's where, once we've input all of our parameters, the adjustment value shows up there. Okay, now moving over to where our input sections are, you have 4 inputs, and then as you can see, there's a dial next to those. So the first of those inputs is wind, input in miles per hour as per the game. The next one is your rings from max count. So if you're someone that's not used to counting rings from max, you'll understand what that is. If you're not, go ahead and have a look at one of my playthrough videos. You'll see what I do in there. But effectively, all you are doing is pulling the club that you're using all the way to max and then counting back to your shot position. So what the caddy will do, it's got an algorithmic triangulation method that works out what your adjustment value needs to be to get your shot to the right position, whether that's forward, backwards, or sideways after your adjustment, to then get you back to your starting position once your ball is affected by the wind and your shot is affected by the wind. So all you need to know is your rings from max counted to your initial setup position. Again, if that's not clear, go and have a look at one of my playthrough videos, any of the live videos that I've done, and you'll get a really good idea of what to do there. Now moving down the list, you can see the ball there. There's two options here. You can either have a Pro D1 selected or all. All actually gives you any other ball option in the game. Now, the only reason we've got that at this stage is that the difference between the standard balls, anything sort of power 6 and upwards, is so negligible that unless you are playing a tournament with something like 30 mph winds, you're really not going to notice the difference in the adjustment value. However, we will be soon adding that in to give you options for all power balls, and that will give you then a slight change in some of those balls depending on what you're using. So that's coming soon, but at the moment it's not something that's going to drastically change your shot or your adjustment value, so it's nothing that you need to be too concerned about. Really, the only thing you need to care about is whether it's Pro D or any other ball. Then next to that, we have an elevation adjustment button as well. So if you're playing a hole that shows significant elevation up or down from your shot position to the landing position, then you can adjust that to compensate for the additional or reduced wind effect for any of your shots, whether it's elevated or a decline. So if you've got a decline in this game, you typically will enter a negative value, whereas if you've got an incline from your starting position to your landing position, then you will probably want to have a positive multiplier. So negative if you're going downhill, positive if you're going uphill. And then once you've input each of those parameters, the next thing you're going to want to do is use the overlay wind arrow tool to go and select the correct wind angle. So it's nice and easy to use, and you get a really accurate wind angle when you're taking your shot, which we'll go through quickly in a second. And when we do the wind arrow calibration, I'll show you how that works. But that's it. So once you've input each of those parameters, you will get an adjustment value, and you can go ahead and make your adjustment and hopefully sink your shot. Now, in terms of inputting values into the calculator, there's two options. By default, it starts with the drag feature. So what you do to access the drag feature is simply click and hold on any of the icons and then either drag it up or down to change the value. So if using the wind as an example, if I want to go and put my wind speed in using the drag feature, I just click and hold, and then I can slide up and down, and that's going to change my wind value until I get to the value that I want. Now, there is another option. So if you prefer not to do drag, if you've got big fingers or you find it a bit fiddly to get it to settle on the right value, you can go into the settings menu within the calculator. So the 3 dots at the bottom of that overlay page. We'll click on that. And as you can see, the second menu option down is input method, and we can change it from drag to calculator. So all that's going to do now, instead of when I click on that button, it's starting the drag feature. If I click on it now, it brings up a calculator and I can enter my value. Now, once you've clicked off that window, if you then go and click back into that same parameter input again, it will reset the number to 0. So if you've input an incorrect value, you can quickly check it, go back in and put in a new value, nice and easy to use. So that's pretty much it. It's really straightforward when you're setting up a shot. The only other thing is obviously your club selection. So all you need to do to change clubs is click on the club icon in the main window. It will drop down a list of all of the club families. And then to change those clubs, all you need to do is click and hold on whatever club you want to change, and then go and select the club that you're using, and you get the updated values. So as you can see, I can go and set all these up. And once they're set up, they're set then. You don't need to worry about changing them unless you're going to use a different club for that shot. Again, nice and easy to use. As I said, once we've done all our setup, then we will start getting an adjustment value showing in this part of the screen here. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is show you how to do the wind arrow calibration. So we'll go into the game and we'll have a look at that. Okay, so now we're in the game, and what we're going to do is set up the wind arrow overlay so that it fits exactly into our screen, and we're going to show you how to do that now. So all we need to do is go into the calculator, click the settings button again, and there's a couple of calibration options. In this video, we're only going to go through the wind cross. However, I will also make a separate video that shows how to set up for wedges. So to do the calibration, we click on the wind cross button, and as you can see, it's going to explain to you what you need to do. However, there's two things that you need to do. First is to drag the overlay down to the wind arrow. Okay, so we do that first, and then we use the slider to get it to the right size. So just keep playing with the settings, move it down as required. Just keep playing with the settings until you get to the right value. That looks pretty good to me. Overlay it on top. Try and center it a bit better. That looks great. Click OK, and that is now set. So what's going to happen? When we go to play our shot, all you need to do, once you've input all your other parameters, so you've done your wind speed, you've done the count from max, and if there's any elevation in play, you put that in. And then what we want to do is click on the dial that is showing in the calculator page and hold that down, and we just need to spin it around. So you'll see that there's a small yellow pointer that floats around the circle, and that lets you get to the exact wind angle. And once you release that, it stays locked so that you can make sure that you've got the right wind angle. If it's not, you can go back and change it. So that is now giving us the right value for whatever that is, about a 35, 40 degree headwind. As I said, really simple to use. You get your adjustment value straight away, and then you're good to go. Now, as a nice little reminder, when you close the calculator window by pressing the two arrows facing in the top right corner, the caddy icon actually still gives you the required adjustment value. So you don't need to reopen the calculator to get the value. It's sitting there ready to go, and you can go ahead and play your shot. Okay, so as I said, there was one other thing I wanted to show in this video, and that is how to count rings or how to use the correct adjustment method when we're playing our shot, because the approach that we use for caddy may be different for some of you, and I want to make sure that you get that right. So please watch through to the next section, and we're going to go through exactly how to do your ring count, and we'll go through a couple of shot examples. Okay guys, so probably the biggest change that you will need to make to your setup to be able to use Ultimate Golf Caddy is that you may need to adjust the way you pull for ring counts. So, some of you may be used to using a method where you always avoid the center ring due to the slight variation in sizes between the rings. But what this method does is actually always incorporate the center ring. So what you need to do is to always use the center ring, but always treat every ring as one actual ring. So some of you may not know what I'm talking about here, which doesn't matter. All you need to care about is that each ring represents one ring, and you're always going to pull completely through the center ring. Now I'll give you a couple of examples to show you what I mean so that you all know exactly what we're going to do. So let's say I have an adjustment value of 3.5 rings. What I'm going to do is set my crosshair up 2.5 rings from the bullseye, and then I'm going to pull all the way through to the other side of the center circle, which will give me 3.5 rings. So I've got half a ring, 1.5 rings, 2.5 rings, through to the other side of the center circle for 3.5 rings. Okay, so always pulling entirely through the center circle, including those 2 rings in my pull. So let's say I have a 4-ring adjustment. I'm going to go 3 rings from the bullseye and pull all the way through 1, 2, 3, 4 rings, always using the center circle. Now the only time you don't need to do this is if your adjustment value is less than 2 rings. But if it is less than 2 rings, always use one of the white circles. So if I have a 1.5 ring adjustment, I'll start at the outside ring and I will pull into halfway through one of the clear rings for 1.5 rings of adjustment. Now, there's a couple of reasons why I do this. The algorithms are built to recognize every ring as one ring. So when you're adjusting, it's going to be a lot easier because you don't need to worry about the variation in sizes between the rings. But the other reason I did it this way is that because if you do play to avoid the center ring, any error in your pull is going to be magnified when you're pulling 4 rings at a time if you've got a high ring pull requirement. So let's say you were using a high accuracy club like lightning rod and you need to do a 11 ring adjustment. That means you're going to do 3 separate pulls just to get to your 11 rings, and any minor error is magnified when you're pulling multiple times. Whereas with this method, you always use 10 rings. It's very easy to see exactly how much that 10 ring value is, and then whatever extra is required goes on top of that. It's a much simpler method to use, and it's going to mean that your pulls get more and more accurate the more that you practice with it. So always pulling through the center, don't forget to do that, and always incorporating that into your pull. Okay, so that's it. That's all you need to worry about. As I said, nice and easy to use, not much to do when you're setting up your shot. And if you need some assistance on understanding how rollout works or how you might want to go about setting up your shot, Go ahead and watch some of my other videos where I do the playthroughs. You'll see how I go about it. You can also watch some of the other streamers, guys like Duff, guys like Jared, who've got really good quality content that will show you how to set up your shots. Go ahead and watch those. You'll get an understanding of how to do it, and hopefully you are going to start getting the drops. Good luck out there, guys. Cheers.